Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of The Actors Agenda. I am Mike Manning, and I'm here with...
Clementine Heath.
Clementine Heath. In addition to being a good friend of mine and having a very cool name that makes me hungry every time I hear it, Clementine is a very gifted actress, writer. She helps me with auditions, we help each other. You're a great acting coach. You're responsible for me getting a handful of the jobs I've gotten. You're kind of like my work wife.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
And you're the godmother to the dogs. They love you. Aunt. And she has a cool accent. Aunt. Because you've worked on not having an Australian accent as much, right?
Oh, yeah, we should probably highlight that. I am an, what is the word? Transplant. Born and raised in Australia.
But then you kind of...
I've been here like 20 years.
And sometimes I forget that you're from Australia, but then you say something...
Like basil.
Yeah. We'll be cooking in the kitchen. Basil. Or what's the other one? It's just... What do you call a popsicle?
An icy pole.
Icy pole. It just sounds...
Icy pole.
Icy pole sounds...
You guys say popsicle.
Yeah, icy pole.
I've changed my vocabulary with a few things, like instead of saying garbage. Yeah, things like that.
You used to say rubbish.
Rubbish, that's it.
Australian.
See, I've forgotten.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting. Yeah.
Rubbish bin.
Anyway, Actors Agenda. Tell me a little bit about this, Mike.
The Actors Agenda.
Yeah, how did this come about?
So each week on the Actors Agenda, I will be talking with impressive people in different areas of the industry with the goal of educating and inspiring listeners to forge their own paths in entertainment and beyond. Clementine and I will chat a little bit, and then we'll jump into my interview with a revolving door of special guests and inspiring listeners to forge their own paths in entertainment and beyond.
Because you've been working for how long now?
I've been in Los Angeles for almost 14 years.
And you've been pretty much working nonstop.
And
you've managed to really navigate a nice career path for yourself.
Thank you.
Did you have mentors on one?
I did. I had people that took me under their wings, and I hope to have some of them as guests on the podcast. Mm-hmm. I also I've taken a lot of acting classes over the years, and sometimes...
Which is very important.
Some are great, and some are not great, and I've made some mistakes throughout my career, and I've had my little light bulb inspiration moments, and I hope that maybe by having this podcast that I prevent other people from making some of those mistakes.
Shining a light.
I want to shine a light. I want to shine that light.
Shine that light, Mike.
I want to be that light bulb.
Well, I'm excited.
Thank you. I am too. We'll see how it goes. However, dear listener, you are receiving this podcast, if you're watching it, listening in your car, on your computer, at the office, I hope that you leave each episode excited, inspired, ready to conquer the world, and maybe with some tools to bring your most powerful self to the entertainment industry. That's my goal, anyway. I want to spread the love.
I think the insight is what will help to inspire others.
I'm going to do it. And speaking of inspiration, my guest for episode 1...
Leah McKendrick.
Talk about somebody that inspires. She inspires me every single day. She's such a talented writer, actress, director, everything.
And she's really forged this path for herself too, which is what, as a writer as well, like I am so in awe of the projects that she's been able to attach herself to as a writer. There's a lot that you guys talk about, but she's a name to remember.
She is forging her own path, and it's not a new thing. She's been doing it since college. She would create her own material. She would write her own scenes.
You produced one of her feature scripts.
That's how we met, actually. Yeah, I produced a film called MFA that Leah wrote, and we premiered it at South by Southwest, and it was in theaters, and it did really well. And we produced.
It is very good, actually.
Thank you. And we made it for zero money, so I think we talk a little bit about that too in the interview. Yeah, so without further ado, maybe sometimes I'm just going to slip into, maybe that British or Australian? Maybe I should, no, you don't like Australian. You don't like an Australian accent.
It sounds more Kiwi.
Kiwi, like New Zealand, yeah.
New Zealand.
But I feel like the average person doesn't really know the difference.
That's like saying Americans and Canadians can't really tell the difference.
What are you talking about, eh? Okay,
Fargo.
Yeah.
Oh, gee.
Yeah.
Fargo. Okay.
So now, without further ado, this is my interview with Leah McKendrick.
Woohoo.
Here we go. Goodbye.
Bye.
See you soon. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling excited to see you.
I'm so excited to see you.
It's the actor's agenda. Nah, 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 nah. It's the actor's agenda.
So you're somebody that I love. You're somebody that is killing it as an artist, but also as a business person. And I think people are going to learn a lot from you today. So thank you for being here.
Oh, you're always gassing me up. You're so sweet. You do this in real life too. Sometimes we'll be at a party and I hear you talking to somebody and I'm like, they're looking at me and I'm like, and I peek in and you're listening. You're just literally listing my credits and talking about my newest
I
project.
love being
You're so
a hype
sweet.
man for you because number one, it's easy. So we were just at the Scrambled premiere. I mean, this is jumping ahead, but we were just at the Scrambled premiere and I was there and you were on the carpet wearing your pink dress, just living your best life. And because you worked so hard on Scrambled, which we'll get to, and I was being interviewed on the carpet and somebody said, how does it feel to be here? And you zoom right past me. I said, oh, there's Leah. And they were like, oh, were you and Leah friends? And I was like, yeah, we've been friends for a long time. And they said, how do you feel being here? I said, when you see like your sister doing something and you're just so proud, I was like, tonight it feels like my sister just like went to the moon. And that's how I feel about you.
Oh, that makes me want to cry.
Yeah. But anyway, I know you so well, but not everybody knows you. So let me just list off some of your credits.
Oh, here we go.
And be
All
this
right.
hype man. Okay, so Leah McKendrick, you're an American film director, screenwriter, actress, and singer. You're best known for writing and acting in films such as MFA. As a writer, director, lead actress in Scrambled, which released in theaters by Lionsgate this year after premiering at South by Southwest in last March. You were born and raised in San Francisco, California. You studied at Chapman University. While you were there, you started early. You wrote, directed, produced, and acted in a number of short films and stage plays. You graduated in 2008 with a BFA in theater. You're currently writing I Know What You Did Last Summer for Sony with Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. in talks to reprise their roles. You're writing voicemails for Isabel for Netflix, which you're attached to direct. You are also writing Mrs. Claus for Hello Sunshine, with Jennifer Gardner attached. You recently wrote Summer Lovin', a prequel to Grease for Paramount. You're working on a remake of True Beverly Hills for TriStar. IndieWire recently said, quote, Leah Dunham had Girls, Amy Schumer had Trainwreck, and now Leah McKendrick has Scrambled. The filmmaker and star behind the dramedy Scrambled shines in this coming-of-age fertility saga.
Aww.
How does it feel to be up there with Amy Schumer and Lena
Oh my
Dunham?
God, it's the greatest honor of my life. I'm just like the biggest fan of both of them. They've been huge inspirations for me. And I actually Lena wrote me a lovely email before I was headed into directing Scrambled. And it was a pinch me moment for sure, where she was just giving me some advice. And you really, when you grew up and you were so inspired by these female filmmakers, you really just want to like follow in their footsteps. And I hope I did that. So it's a big honor.
You did. I saw on your Instagram today, it was pictures of you on set for Scrambled. And I remember it was one of the scenes was the one where you're all sitting around the support group. And it's you surrounded by women of all ages, shapes, sizes. And it's you looking at the monitor checking the scene. So you're in the scene as an actress, you wrote the thing, and then you're directing it at the same time. And it kind of was reminiscent for me of MFA too, when you have your lead character surrounded in a support group by these women. And it's just,
I love a support group.
You love a support group.
Yes,
you love
I
a support group.
do.
And every single project you do is just infused with this like femininity and this like female power. Have you always been that way, or is that kind of a newer thing? Or
Yeah, my mom is a big feminist, and that was instilled in us really young. And I also grew up reading women's magazines when I was way too young. Like, I just was very obsessed with the female experience and what it was going to be to get my period, and what it was going to be to lose my virginity, and what it was going to be pressured to have sex when I'm like 10 years old, reading all like Cosmopolitan and trying to figure out what was up ahead, and STDs and pregnancy and motherhood and sexual assault. I've always been super interested in just what it means to be a woman in the world. And so that was just from when I was very young. I was reading everything, every magazine, to try to figure it out. So to be a woman is the journey of a lifetime, truly, and it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't know, but I can imagine.
You've got an idea.
I have an idea. So you talked about when you were younger. Have you always wanted to be an actress in entertainment, or is that something that you sort of figured out as you went? Could you remember the exact moment that you decided, I'm going to do this?
I just always knew what I was going to do. Always. I was going to go to Hollywood, and I was going to act, and I was going to sing. And my mom says that I was talking about it when I was like 2 years old. And she was like, where did she learn about Hollywood? Because I never told her about Hollywood. That remains a mystery. I think it was just in my blood. My great-grandmother was a singer who moved to Hollywood. My grandparents met in Hollywood as making a musical together, and I didn't know any of that as a child. I didn't know. People didn't tell me this until I was much, much older. And I think because in many ways Hollywood broke people's hearts in my family, that my grandpa was drafted to the Korean War when he was finally breaking in. And he felt that he kind of lost everything, all the momentum that he had built, and came back and had a pregnant wife and needed to provide. So he went to law school, he went to UCLA. But it created a hole in his heart that he never got to live this dream. And I think he became a quite angry man. And until I think he softened in his later years, but he passed, and a lot of the memory of him is of him being a drinker and a very angry man. And I think a lot for that reason, Hollywood was not a place where dreams came true in my family. And even my great-grandmother, Beverly Shaw, who was a singer, her songs are on Marvelous Miss Maisel because she sang during the 50s, but she left her family in Chicago because she came to Hollywood to live her dreams, and she had children. So she literally left her whole family, came to Hollywood, started one of the only lesbian nightclubs. She was a lesbian, and she's an icon in the movement of lesbian women and queer culture. And I'm quite proud of her, but there's a lot of pain from your mother leaving to pursue a dream. So there's this dark history in my family that I hope I can speak about. I didn't really ask permission of any of my family, but they know how I am. But it's taken me a long time to realize that it wasn't my family not believing in me. My dad used to always say to me, it's not that we don't believe in you, we don't believe in Hollywood. So there was a darkness surrounding these dreams that I had from birth that I think everyone was like, where did it come from? Where did it come from? But I think it just came from my blood and the generations that came before me.
Wow. See, I think I know you so well. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't talk about it a lot.
That's fascinating.
A deep cut family skeletons.
If you had known those sort of darker areas of your grandparents and sort of your family history, would you have still moved to Hollywood to be an actress?
I would have moved sooner. I felt so understood on some level when I found this stuff out later. I thought, this is where it came from. I'm not the black sheep of my family that wanted to pursue this. I'm picking up where previous generations left off. I've been passed the baton. But I also wonder if, you know how they talk about generational trauma. I was raised in a pretty solid home, middle class, San Francisco, never worried about food on the table. But I was plagued with these feelings of failure really young. I was plagued with this feeling of I have to speed through my childhood because I have to get to work. I have so much to do. And I do wonder if that came from me in a past life or if that just came from my grandpa not being able to make it in Hollywood or my great grandma not being able to. I mean, she did make it in a way, and she was this big figure in the queer scene. But I didn't know her. I mean, they have her clothes in a museum. I mean, she's an icon. I'm very proud of her, but I don't know what her experience was like till the end. But yeah, I think I've always felt like I was running out of time, and that's why it's a big theme of Scrambled, my new film.
Wow. Well, I wanna get to Scrambled, but I think something that's so fascinating about you is that you didn't, and maybe that's a theme here, is that you didn't waste any time. So when you were at Chapman, you were already creating short films. You were writing, you were directing, you were singing, you were dancing, and then after you graduated, it wasn't long until you created Destroy the Alpha Gammas, right? Can you tell me sort of how that came about and like where did that come from for you?
I mean, it started very young. I would hire my backup dancers with my allowance when I was younger, and I was always doing musical theater, and I would go out and find out about shows and find out how to book myself on shows, and I would make my own costumes with like my glue gun and like rhinestones. I've always been very like entrepreneurial. I think part of it was because I did feel a whole lot of support from my family, and I figured I was going to have to do it all on my own and prove everyone wrong and show everyone that I could make a living out of it, and I could turn my dreams into reality. So I had been kind of creating my own stuff, whether it was my stage shows or my demos as a singer. I was always writing music. I was always in voice lessons. I was always performing. So by the time I got to college, I didn't want to go to college. Like, I really just wanted to move to LA and like get a record deal. Like, that's what I really wanted. And my parents were terrified, and they were like, please, for the love of God, just go to college. Like, you can study whatever you want. You can get a degree in acting or in music or like whatever. And I just thought to myself, okay, fine, I'll go to college until I get my record deal. And then I'll drop out of school, and everybody will be sorry for making me go to school. Like such a little like prissy brat, right? But I went to Chapman. I studied theater performance. And the first couple years, I was just so not invested in school. I was performing a lot. I was in Hollywood recording and trying to get a record deal. And I had big heartbreak at the end of my second year, my sophomore year, where I had been working on this demo. I had like a deal, but it was like a development deal situation as an artist, and I thought that I was going to get signed by this specific record label, and I didn't. And it just didn't really occur to me that I could actually get to the right people and they would say no. Like that didn't, because the mountain to me, and I think you have to be a bit delusional like this as a performer, otherwise you would never leave your hometown, you'd never come to Hollywood, you would never take a chance on yourself. But my thinking was like, I'm gonna break into this business and I will reach the right person the way that Britney had Larry Rudolph, all these famous figures that saw their talent and then were warriors for them. I'll just find the right man or woman and they're gonna get me. And then it felt like it's happening, and it didn't happen, and it really rocked me in a big way. And it was a blessing because I had nowhere to go except for deeper into the life I was living. So for the first time, I started to actually like spiritually attend class. I felt like until that point, I was 1 foot outside the door. I would show up and I would do what I needed to do. But I thought that it was all beneath me. I thought I didn't need to be in school because I was about to be a superstar. And so once I had to actually start to apply myself at Chapman, it unlocked everything because I was so frustrated. I think I was in pain. I think I was like, I I don't need to do these dumb scenes because I'm about to be this big deal. So I would say to my professor, John Bennett, who's a big mentor of mine and has turned out to be one of the biggest sources of inspiration in my life. But I would say to him, just being rebellious, like, I don't want to do these scenes. These scenes don't speak to me. This is for acting for camera class. I don't want to do this. It's been recycled a million times. It doesn't speak to me. And he's like, you're doing it. And I was like, I'm not doing it. And he's like, well, then you're going to have to write something. And if it's better, then I'll let you do that. But it has to be better. And I was like, I can do that. And that's how I began screenwriting. And it was just to get out of the scenes that they were making us do in class. And that led to writing scenes for other people in class. Then that led to writing plays. That led to writing films. And it was just because I think I was simultaneously heartbroken and also frustrated that I had to be in school. And I had a lot to say. Because I had been working professionally. I wasn't making any money, but I was out there performing. I was out there writing music. I was out there creating a stage show. I was used to creating my dreams. And suddenly I was in school where they were telling me what I had to do. And I was like, that's not who I am. So I'm really grateful for that time. Like if they wouldn't give me a theater, I'd be like, well, I'm putting it up on the steps then. And I was always getting in trouble. I was always in trouble. But at Chapman, they were very good to me. They would kind of give me a slap on the wrist or like, Leah, again. And I'm like, oopsie. Like, I'm not supposed to do nudity, not supposed to have blood, not supposed to have these many F-balls. I was always getting in trouble. But they really did let me expand as an artist and experiment in a way that's very safe when you're in school. Mm-hmm. It was the beginning of everything for me as a filmmaker, but I didn't know it yet.
You were challenged, and then you rose to the occasion. And looking back now, are you grateful for that sort of door being slammed in your face? Because then you had to, that door almost became a mirror, and it had you question, like, who am I as an artist, and how can I create these opportunities? Because I didn't get my big record deal, which I was sort of counting on, right? Are you grateful now looking back, or do you wish you could be Mariah Carey right now?
No, there was no way I was ever going to be Mariah. I wish. I get annoyed when people sit in interviews and are like, I'm so blessed from that setback. I can still feel the pain of that girl. If anything, I just want to hold that girl and say, like, your life isn't over from this, that this might be the way that you have imagined it. And I think that's a really big thing that I like to tell, like, students and younger people is you might have a very specific vision of what success looks like, of what Hollywood looks like, of what you want, the life that you want to live. And I think that's beautiful, and I think you should continue to develop that. But you should also do your best to be malleable enough to see the detours that your life can take and the new colors of yourself that you can foster. Mm-hmm. And I guess the thing that I'm grateful for is that if that record deal had worked out, I would have dropped out of school. And I might not have ever known that I had a lot to say, and there were many ways that I would learn how to say it. Because I look at pop stars that I adore, and I see how hard their lives have been, and the scrutiny and the way that we just tear apart women in music specifically, and how hard fame can be, and how dark it can be, and the way that we want pop stars to sort of encompass every aspect of womanhood. It's really hard to be a singer. So I do look at that and I go, I don't know that would have been a healthy place for me or for anyone. And I do feel like as a filmmaker, I am empowered to speak my truth rather than the truth of the record label or the studio or whatever. So we could talk all day about the difference between the music industry and making movies, but I am grateful that through my heartbreak, I was forced to foster other skills.
Yeah. I was talking to someone about Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights. And
I want to read it.
It's great. It's great. I did the audiobook.
I love a memoir.
Just because we're stuck in traffic in Hollywood so much that
Hell yeah.
I do audiobooks all the time now.
Does
but
he
Matthew
read it?
McConaughey actually reads
hell
it.
Yeah.
So you feel like he's talking to you as a friend, and he does it in a way, he equates
setbacks with, it's like a red light, a yellow light, or a green light. And green lights are like, you're on the right track, you're doing the right thing, you've had the correct preparation, just speed through that green light like you're on your track. A yellow light is something that happens that sort of makes you question things and take pause and say, am I on the right track? Should I go a little faster? Should I slow down and reevaluate things, the people around me, what I'm doing, everything else? It just gives you permission to stop and think. And then a red light is a setback. Is like you can't go, you can't cross this intersection. This light is not for you right now. You have to stop and sort of look around and take inventory on how you're in this place. Yeah. How did I get here? What am I driving? What am I doing? What's in the trunk? Like, he just uses all these metaphors, which I love. And it sort of helped him navigate his career in terms of kind of like what you're saying is not being deterred when you come up to a red light and be like, you know what, I'm going to create my own thing. I'm going to adapt. But also when it does turn yellow or it does turn green and you are on the right track, really taking advantage of that and being like, okay, this is how I got here. This is the artist that I am. And now I'm going to go full steam ahead and just really take advantage of it and not be scared. And that's what I love about what you do. You mentioned Chapman. And so clearly you didn't have an awful relationship with them because they let you film MFA there.
Yes.
And if I remember correctly, that's how we met, was on MFA. I mean, we met through Vinny, our mutual friend, but we really got to know each other during MFA.
Yeah.
And MFA, for those of you that don't know, it's a film that Leah wrote. She was the second female lead. Mm-hmm. And she produced it as well, and it's sort of the film that I would say catapulted your career as a writer and as a creative.
Yeah.
Where did MFA come from? Why'd you do it?
Well, I graduated Chapman, and then I got my record deal, and then the label folded. As we know, picking up where we left off.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, I say that I feel that I have died twice in my life. And that was the first time where the Leah that had existed for the first, 22 years of my life, it was like I was 6 feet under and I had to sort of like be reborn into something else because it was my entire worldview crumbled. Again, like I thought I just needed to get to the right people. Well, now I finally did. I did the impossible. I achieved it. I got the record deal. I'm recording my album. And then it never occurred to me that like the label could go under, which was something that was happening a lot because this was a new era in music where streaming was being created and labels didn't have the same power now that people were making music at home and putting it themselves up on YouTube. And it was just changing. The entire game was changing. And I felt like I was a casualty of history and how the world was changing. And I fell into deep, dark depression. I'd never experienced that. I don't think I knew at the time that it was depression, but I know now that it was. And I didn't know what to do but to just keep creating. And I was putting together my stage show. I think it was denial. It was like, no, it's not over. They're going to need me to showcase and I'm going to have to perform again. So I'll just get my like stage show together. And I'm glad that I was at least making something because I think I felt that if I stopped, everyone would know that I was a failure and that I had failed and this wasn't a real thing. But if I just continued to create, I thought, well, maybe I'm not a failure if I'm still doing it, if I'm still making something. So I'm performing live, I'm recording, and everyone's telling me, you should be on Glee because you act and you sing and you dance. You should be on Glee. And I was like, great, I'll just go be on Glee now.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Don't you love that? My mom loves it. And if my mom is listening to this, God bless, she'll always call me and she'll say, Mike, I was watching this cop show, this procedure, or this. You should just do that. You should do. Yeah. She's like, Mom, you do that. And I'm like, okay, Mom, I'll just call the casting director right now and say, hi, my mother says that I should be
that
this.
I should be on.
Yeah. I mean, God bless you, Mom. I love you if you're listening, but
I know, it's so sweet.
It doesn't quite work like that.
It doesn't quite, unfortunately. Yeah. But I was frustrated because I couldn't get in for Glee. And so I thought, I think I'll have to do what I did in college and I'll have to make my own Glee. So I, for the first time, kind of pulled those skills out and I wrote a web series. It was 7 episodes long, and it was about sororities at war. It was a musical. It was called Destroy the Alpha Gammas.
Destroy the Alpha Gammas, yeah.
And we shot that shoestring. Really, we shot it at UCLA. We had next to no money, but so many people, and this is one of the magical things that I always try to tell people that are about to start making their first piece of content, whether it's a short or a web series or whatever it is. People in this town are dreamers. People want to work. People want to be on set. If you're somebody that inspires, activity in them, that they're just like, I don't know what this is going to be, but they're asking me to come do this thing. Sure, I'll come do your thing. And that's what I'm very good at asking people for things that I have no business asking for. And my ask was always this. I would reach out specifically to people. That was the other thing. I wouldn't blanket. I would find the person that I wanted, whether it was a production designer or a choreographer or whatever. And I'd be like, I want you. You are the person that needs to do this with me. I am a fan of this, this, and this. I don't have the money to pay you what you deserve, but I promise you that I will finish this project and I will fight for this project and it will be out there and it's gonna be dope. Mm-hmm. And everybody would be like, all right. It was so rare that somebody was like, no, you don't have the money.
Well, because you need that. And how many projects have we been a part of that it's like, oh, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and mostly in the development stage. Mm-hmm. Luckily, I think, fingers crossed, it's like when a project gets going, I've never had a project not come out. But even then, people will shoot projects and they just end up never being released to the world. They just die. Totally. They just dry up. And so it probably was refreshing to hear you say, look, we're going to do this project. It's going to be great. I want you. So you're feeding to their ego a little bit. Yep. But also that type of person that's coming up to me saying, this project's going to happen. I promise. I'm not going to stop. I have faith in you that you're gonna get it done, and that we're not gonna have this little baby together that we raise and we go on set and we do this whole thing, and then the baby never gets to be released to the world, right? So I think that's probably where some of your power came from. Is look, they know that they have the Leah engine behind whatever they're getting behind. Okay, so that was Destroy the Alpha Gammas.
So then I made that. And that put me in a new plane where suddenly I had agents calling and producers. And then I was like, oh, this thing. And I starred in that, of course. And I got to sing and I got to act and I got to dance, produced it, wrote it. And I received so many accolades. And we were at all the festivals. And I had such a great time. And I thought, that thing that I did in college, I can do it in the real world. And I can play the kind of roles that I want to play the same way I did in college because I didn't want to do the stuff they were making me do. I can just do that here. So then I started making short films. I was always making a short film. I made a ton, and I would always be at the festivals. And at a certain point, I was like, I'm ready to make a feature because I noticed from all the festivals that I would go to that it was like the feature filmmakers were given this prestige. It felt like the festival was really for them. And then you kind of smuggled your way in as a shorts filmmaker. But everybody knows, and I love a short. A short is an art form. It's so difficult to make a good short. You could argue in some ways it's more difficult because it has to be a cohesive thought, beginning, middle, end, told well. It has to affect you in under 10 minutes. Sometimes, it's really, we could talk all day about shorts, but I thought, I want to be like them. I want to be taken seriously. I want to make a feature film. And at the time, I felt like I kept reading the same story over and over and over again in the media, which was that girls across the country and the globe, girls and boys, but specifically women, were being, and not even women, it was girls, teenage girls were being assaulted on campuses. And the campus and the universities were covering it up. Mm. And then the girls were being ostracized and dropping out of school and sometimes taking their own lives. And I thought, this is a problem. Well, we got to talk about this. I think I was very rageful. I was very heartbroken for what was happening. I've always felt a deep connection to sexual assault, sexual violence. I've experienced some myself and felt a deep, fire in me to talk about it. So I wrote MFA, which is a rape revenge film, and the first draft was very, very angry. And I showed it to John Bennett, my professor from Chapman, and he had the best note for me. He was like, what if it was like Django Unchained? And it just felt good when she starts coming for these guys. And you could still have that rage, but what if you had some like quippy one-liners? What if you had some popcorn in there? Some moments where it can be cathartic and enjoyable and not just heavy. And so that was a really great note. And so I started, you know, for the first time in my life, developing a script rather than just writing it and shooting it and writing and shooting it, which has an important place. I mean, I love that sort of way of working, which is like, we're just going to go for it. But it's my first time, and I started rewriting and rewriting, and I was like, we're going to make it this summer. And in my mind, I was like, we're going to make it for $100,000. I mean, that even today, that's like near impossible. But back then, even that we ended up having to get more than $100,000. Yeah. But still, I didn't want to spend $1 more than we needed. Because I had made all of my work really shoestring, and that's what I believed in, and I didn't want to wait for years to get $1 million or $2 million, and so that's where you got on board, and that's where we started pulling in people. I got Natalia, my director, who was amazing, who had already had a successful film, Bear, that had premiered at Tribeca, and that was my sort of foray into making a feature film. And I'm so grateful to South by Southwest, because this was a very shoestring budget film. And when we sent it to them, it wasn't even done. And I remember writing this like manifesto to Janet, the head of the festival. It was the day of the Women's March. And we were waiting to find out. We knew we were like in contention. We might be getting in. And I wrote this manifesto, which I'm so embarrassed. I should ask Janet if she remembers this. But I was like, I know that my movie is on the right side of history, and I know that my movie belongs at South by Southwest. And I remember her response to me was like, thank you for this email, Leah. Unfortunately, we cannot program all films that we love. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, they're breaking up with us. I was like, I think I just blew our chances. But then we found out like a few days later that we got in, and it made all the difference in my career, because it's true, when you have made a feature film and it goes to one of the top festivals and people start reading about it in the trades and they like the concept. We had Francesca Eastwood starring, and she's an icon. The business does look at you differently. It's like suddenly you're in the big leagues, and from there I got a writing career, which was very unexpected.
Yeah, your writing career has taken off since then. I think you broke me as well during that experience, because I came from, before that I had produced a few scripted feature films, but I had mainly produced documentaries, which are also low budget typically. And then so during that whole process, it was, okay, let's call in favors. Let's do what we can. Let's not spend $1 more than we need to. Let's make the most of this. And now every time I work with filmmakers, I'm like, well, your $5 million budget, we could probably do it for $1 million. Or like, oh, $10 million, we don't need that. Give me 3. And they hate working with me, because I'm like, we don't need to spend it on that. We don't need that extra thing. Let's just put these scenes together. But I feel like that is at the heart and soul of, you describe yourself as an indie filmmaker through and through. And I feel like that is the heart and soul of indie filmmaking. And I think that indie filmmaking, especially now with what the studios are going through, and with everybody just battling to sort of maintain Hollywood and maintain creating these things that joy. I feel like indie filmmakers are going to be the saviors, because we are the ones that will make our film on any budget. We will make it look amazing with this budget. We will make it look, tell our story with this budget. And I feel like that will never change. Indie filmmakers, we're like the cockroaches.
We are.
The nuclear fallout can happen, but we're going to be crawling out with our cameras making our movies.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And I want to inspire people that have never made a movie to give it a shot and see that it's not rocket science. And it's a hard time in indie film. I think it's a hard time in the industry, because it's like the battle between theaters and streaming, and even Marvel movies aren't a sure thing right now. And suddenly we're like, wait, what? No, it's like the blind leading the blind a little bit. So all I've ever really known to do is follow my own inner North Star, and like what speaks to me and what I want to make, because the rules are always changing. The genres that work or don't work are always changing. I can't keep up. It's a moving target. So I have to thine own self be true.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's where your success comes from, what your sort of superpower is that now, whether it was all along or through these experiences, you know yourself, you know the types of stories you want to tell. And I've gone to you for script notes before, and you're like, Mike, what does this script say? And this isn't true to, to what you told me the script is about. So cut it and do this and lean in here and lean in here. You're very good at focusing and saying, what is it about? Take away all the BS and just tell your story. And I think you paid your dues with MFA, and then you got your budget for Scrambled. And Scrambled, I can't let you go without talking about Scrambled, because Scrambled, I'm
Have we already almost done it?
Blown away.
Are we running out of time?
Yeah, I know.
Jeez, I've been talking this whole time, chatty Cathy over here.
I mean, I honestly could talk to you for 3 hours.
I feel like we've been talking for like 2 minutes.
No, we have. I could talk to you for all day, and I think that listeners, whether they're beginning, they're continuing their careers, or they've had careers, could learn so much from you, because you are doing it. You are auditioning and taking meetings and getting offers as an actress. You are writing and taking notes from studios, but writing your own projects as a writer. You're directing. You just had your directorial debut on this feature film, and just seeing you do your thing was just like, I was blown away. I just remember sitting on set being like, Leah is kicking ass right now.
Aww.
And I'm so proud. So
Thanks, babe.
Tell us about Scrambled.
I had been toiling in the studio system as a studio writer, and I felt I was a good soldier. And as one of my producers lovingly said, he goes, "You're like a starving actress that cannot pull herself away from the buffet table." It's so rude, but he's not wrong in that you go.
I think he could have phrased it a little bit differently.
But I think what he was saying, which was true, was I had gone for so long fighting to get in, not making any money. Anytime I had any little bit of money that I would make from acting or whatever, I would put it right back into a short film, back into my art, trying to, just always just cycling, making, earn. It was like that Spielberg quote, "We don't make movies to earn money. We earn money to make more movies." That's how I was living my life. And then suddenly I had this writing career, and I was getting a lot of amazing jobs and opportunities, and I was saying yes to a lot. Because I felt like it was all going to dry up any day, so I had to kind of take as much from Crafty as I can, put in my pockets. And I was working my butt off, going from deadline to deadline, building a career as a writer, but feeling very lonely, because as an actor, you are in each other's houses, you're rehearsing together, you're touching each other. It's just a very communal art form. But a writer, you're sort of like in the corner with your laptop all day. And I was very lonely, and I had big IP on my plate. I was working on the Grease prequel, and I had another film that they were letting me direct at Paramount, and I was so excited. And then all in one day, it felt, and I had a TV show at HBO, and it was like boom, 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 killed. Everything was killed in a row. It felt like a lineup, And I just, again, another time where you're back almost when I lost my record deal. It's like that same space where you're like, I'm back here after all my hard work. And I said, I can't do this anymore. I have to return to the way that I know how to create, which is me wearing a lot of hats, asking people to join me on this journey across the Atlantic on a raft. Like, that is how I believe. That is why I love indie film, that no matter what happens with my big fancy studio movies, big fancy bosses, big fancy producers and movie stars and all that, no matter what happens with those projects, I can always return and create what I believe in. And that's the beauty of being a storyteller, is you can always start with a blank page and build something from the ground up. And so that's what I did. I said, I'm going to write that film about freezing my eggs. I had frozen my eggs a year prior, hadn't had time to write it, but it was gestating, it was marinating in my head. And I thought, I can make that inexpensively, and I can make that with my friends, and I can do it this summer, and I'll finance it myself. because at least I have something to show for these years. I can pay for a feature film now. It's not a lot. It'll be super shoestring, but like I've done it before. And I told my team that, and my team was like, "Oh God, please don't do that." They were like, "We don't want that for you," because now you have the fancy agents and the fancy companies behind you, and
you're their worst nightmare at that point. You're like, now that I have you and I earned you, I don't need you, and I'm not gonna follow your advice, and I'm gonna call my friends.
Please don't do this. We want you to have X amount of dollars to make for your director. You're going from like a studio movie with a real budget, and then now you want to do it for $5 with your friends over the summer. Like, no. And I was like, no, this is who I am. Is nobody realizing that this is who I am? Like, I don't belong having lobster. Like, I want to get on my raft, and I want to get through the ocean with my friends. And so, but God bless them, they were like, give it to us for a couple months. They sent it around to all the industry, and Megamix got on board, fancy company, Jonathan Levine and Jillian, and they believed in me. And then Lionsgate got on board, and they believed in me, and I got to make the film, still small, but bigger than it would have been for sure. And then I got the distribution. They put us in 700 theaters. So it's just like, it was the impossible happened. Like, truly. Like, I never even asked for that. And I'm such a big believer that nothing that you don't ask for will ever happen for you. Like, if you have a dream, you have to go out there and muscle your way and fight for it. And it was one of those first time in my entire life where something magical happened that I did not ask for, because I was too heartbroken to even think of a studio coming in and giving me that deal.
Was it because you weren't used to asking, or you thought that you would be rejected, or did you not think that you deserved the studio to come in and do some of the lifting for you?
I think I thought that if I sold to a studio, they would put me back into development and then kill it eventually, just like my other films. But I think if I'm to look deep within myself, I think it also came from an insecurity of I'm not good enough, because if I was, they would have made my other films. Or like my story, my personal story alone will not be a strong enough sale, or it's just not going to be mainstream. It's not going to be commercial. It's just not going to be good enough.
Well, Scrambled is on VOD now. It had a great theatrical run. It's on VOD, and for those of you that haven't seen it yet, please watch it. It's Leah's personal story of freezing her eggs at 34 years old, and much like MFA, your lead female character, who is also played by you, really goes for it. You don't pull any punches. You show the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I just think it's beautiful. I think it's raw. I mean, that's why we go see movies, right? Is to connect with people. We watch TV shows to connect with characters and to know that somebody else is going through what we're going through, right? To me, at least, at the core of entertainment, that is why we do it, is to connect with audiences. And that's why audiences exist, right? To see themselves in these characters. And I think that any woman, young woman, not even freezing your eggs, but young woman that wants to feel like there is another strong, badass, powerful woman that is also going through some of the hardships that it takes to be a young woman, will see this movie and will connect with you in a way that just, I'm not a woman, but I think I have a better understanding now of some of the hardships that I never even thought of. It just didn't cross my mind because it's just not a part of my orbit in my life. And there are men, young men and older men, that deal with things that women don't have to think about. It's just a thing. But I remember leaving that theater being like, wow, like I am much more empathetic now, and I also like respect some of these choices that women have to go through. And since seeing Scrambled, 3 of my female friends have brought up freezing their eggs.
Wow.
And I've been able to talk to them, not
You're
intelligently.
the authority on it now. You're let me tell you exactly
let me tell you what
like.
Leah said. No, but like, let me tell you what Leah went through, because you really allowed art to imitate life in Scrambled, and you really showed what it truly took. And I think that was just so powerful. And also, I don't know if you intended to do this, but it was in the first draft, it was so funny. By the time you had your shooting draft, there was a joke on every page, and there was just, I think that you used humor humor and sarcasm to communicate issues that otherwise might be uncomfortable. And I went to them, and I talked to a lot of male friends after the movie, and they were like, "Wow, that was so funny. That was so funny." And there was no point where I felt like, as a male viewer, that I was being talked down to or sort of finger wagged at, because I didn't understand, because of the humor. It made it so funny, and I loved that. I loved, now looking back, now that you have MFA, your indie film that you sort of quarterbacked, and then now you have Scrambled, your indie studio film that you quarterbacked and directed and everything else. Did the experience with Scrambled go as you expected it, knowing what you did from MFA, or was it easier, harder, different?
Here's what I will say. I had a really hard time releasing it. It was really hard to premiere it at South by. It was really hard to premiere it before, like the actual premiere in LA, before theaters. It's launching on VOD. I'm already feeling the pain of that. And I think it's just the way that you are welcoming judgment and criticism and something that's so dear to you because you've been with it and you have been baking it in your belly, and it is such a collaborative art form, but in many ways Scrambled feels like my baby, just the way that MFA did. But it had two mothers at least on MFA, with Natalia as my director and Franny as my star, and it was different then. I don't know. And with Scrambled, I would just tell everyone that I think sometimes they think that making the movie, you did it, but fighting for the movie and releasing the movie and promoting the movie, it's almost like finishing the film is halfway, because today it needs to be found by viewers. And it feels a little like counterintuitive because I feel like I tore off my skin to make the movie, and I felt really safe in the womb of my production and my cast and my crew. I felt so safe and cozy and brave. And then I was like, I did it. And then I came out into the real world, and I'm single, and I'm, just did this difficult thing. And I just had a hard time reassimilating to regular life. And then I had to show people, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't want to show anybody. Now I'm feeling, afraid and insecure, and I've had to rebuild that skin. But I always tell people what Brett told me, Brett Haley, my producer, who's an amazing director himself. He said, if it's just for you, it's an art project. Film is not meant to just be for you. Film is meant to be shared, and film is meant to be, it's not my business what people think, whether they like it or they hate it. It's just my business to create the thing and keep creating. And that can be hard. But I'm such a big believer in actors specifically. What is your story? What is something weird that you think you are alone in? Because that's where the magic really is. If you're trying to chase that, what's everyone gonna relate to? No one will relate to it. It's like, what is so dark or weird or awkward or shameful? Bring that to the screen, and it will be hard for you, just the way it's been hard for me. But ultimately, I think, I get DMs from people saying, thank you for making the film, because now I'm going to freeze my eggs, or I froze my eggs and there was no movie about it. And I'm like, girl, I feel you. That's why I made it, But it's not meant to be easy, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. It's supposed to hurt a bit.
So, I think that's sort of part of the filmmaking process, right? Is you make the film for yourself and then you release it into the world. And I think in some ways that's what acting is. Somebody, I forget who it is right now, but somebody said that what acting is on camera is you're experiencing those raw, deep, ugly, gross, uncomfortable emotions that you don't want anybody to see, that you experience for yourself, and then you're inviting the world into the room.
Yes.
And I think that's what a good performance is like you really have to become comfortable, forget everybody's there, forget about the camera, and you just dig deep within yourself to, that's what acting is, right? Behaving truthfully in the given circumstances, and you're behaving truthfully because you just blind everything out and you just are that person, are that character in that moment. And I feel like you did such a great job at that in Scrambled, and that's why some of those scenes are just so powerful.
Thank you.
I know I have to let you go. I could talk to you for 5 more hours, and I think you have a wealth of knowledge. We'll have to have you back sometime.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, so if there is a young Leah listening, or like a young, like what advice would you give a young Leah or a young actress wanting to do what you do in the future?
I would say that the most powerful thing that you can be is a producer. And what I mean by that is someone that can take a piece of work, a script, whether they wrote it or not, whether they found it themselves, and it's a writer that has just been in their hard drive gathering dust, and you being the engine that gets it made with or without money. That has made all the difference in my career. A lot of people like to point to my writing as my most powerful weapon, the pen. And I believe that in a lot of ways, but I will tell you one thing. A lot of people in this town don't want to read. They don't want to read your script, especially if you have not made anything and you are a piece of paper. Unfortunately, in a town like this, isn't as powerful as you would think it is. But creating something, being somebody that gathers people, that pulls people together, I think is the reason that I have been able to make anything at all. So I would advise little Leah or little actors out there, or big actors out there, and also like, it's a powerful position to be in, to be the captain of a ship that says, I'm going to take this script and I'm going to pull together a talented group of people and we're going to make something, rather than just dreaming alone with your laptop or getting an audition and learning other people's lines and then getting another audition and learning other people's lines, getting another, begging for auditions. Continue to do that. Continue to do what they say, play the lottery. Continue to play the lottery, and may God be with you. May God protect you. I hope you book everything. I hope you book all of your craziest dreams. But if it isn't happening quite so quickly, why don't you try your hand at writing, and why don't you go grab your friends and actually make something? Because I promise you, there's a lot of people in this town that don't want to read your script, but they will watch your short film, especially if you went somewhere cool with it and you've been out there in the streets promoting it. So I would say, be brave, put on, what's that great saying? The elevator to success is broken, take the stairs. That's what I would say. And I would say actors are naturally brave. That is their superpower. They're naturally feisty. They are naturally scrappy. That is who they are. They dig into their souls. They pull out their biggest embarrassments and darkest moments, and that is what they work with every day. So I promise you, if anyone is ready to go into battle and win, it is an actor ready to make something.
So if little Leah is listening to this or watching this right now, big Leah says, go out, produce something, don't ask permission, gather your friends, gather what you have, make your thing, and then someday you will be big Leah.
And make it weird. Make it weird, make it edgy, go for it, make sure that voice is strong, and don't make anything that feels safe. If it feels safe, go back to the drawing board, make it weirder, make it braver.
Leah McKendrick, thank you so much for being my guest.
Thanks for having me, Mikey. I love you.
I love you back. This is Mike Manning, and thank you everybody for tuning in to The Actor's Agenda.
Woo!